From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Hem Kaur Saroya. And on World DNA today, tensions over university protests in the United States continue to mount as police forcibly remove scores of pro-Palestinian protesters at several college campuses. Tensions are mounting as police officials also pushed back scores of students and took down entire encampments at the University of California in LA. We'll get you the latest on this on the show today.
Also on the show, we shift focus to Africa as tensions escalated in Niger, where Russian military personnel and US troops came in close proximity at an airbase where American soldiers are also positioned. The junta carried out a coup in Niger last year and have decided to expel US forces from the country. We will be tracking those developments closely. For now, let's get you started with the headlines.
Top Israeli ministers huddle to discuss the possibility of Rafah offensive as stalemate continues over the Gaza truce deal.
A man held hostage in Gaza since the October 7th Hamas attack last year has been confirmed dead, says Israel. His wife was killed in the initial assault, while 2 of their 3 children were abducted and then freed in November last year.
Turkey suspends all trade with Israel until it allows aid to enter Gaza unhindered during its offensive against Hamas in the territory.
Russian military personnel enter an airbase in Niger that is hosting US troops, a move that follows a decision by Niger's junta to expel US forces from the country.
Former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan alleges threat to his life in a column in a British daily. Imran Khan writes and slams the army chief Asif Munir.
Death toll from heavy rains in Brazil rises to 29, while 60 people are missing. Southernmost state of Rio Grande declares a state of public calamity.
Scandal, hush money payments, secret recordings, and Donald Trump's alleged gag order violations take center stage during his 10th day in court. Trump's lawyer suggests hush money payment was extortion.
Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson turned away from his local polling station when trying to cast his vote in Thursday's elections after forgetting to bring the required photo identity.
Now, Israel's military has confirmed the death of an Israeli man held hostage in Gaza.
His body was held in Gaza since October 7th last year, and the government did not say how it learned of the death. Now, 49-year-old Dror Or lived in Be'eri Kibbutz. It is one of the communities hardest hit in the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel last year, and his wife Yonat was killed in the initial assault, while two of their three children, Noam and Alma, were abducted and then freed in November as part of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas.
Now, Dror Or's death was announced as mediators Qatar, the United States and Egypt are waiting for Hamas's response to a new proposal for a ceasefire and hostage release. Meanwhile, Hamas said that it will send a delegation to Cairo as soon as possible to keep working on ceasefire talks in response to Egypt's latest proposal.
On the other hand, families of Israeli hostages held a protest in Tel Aviv, stepping up pressure on the government to reach a deal with Hamas. The protest was held outside Defense Ministry headquarters, where Israeli war cabinet ministers were meeting.
Benjamin Netanyahu was convening his war cabinet to discuss a possible deal and a long-threatened ground offensive into the southern Gaza city of Rafah. Israel says that is where Hamas is still operating. Over 1 million Palestinians have found refuge during the war in this region.
Meanwhile, the Islamic resistance in Iraq launched multiple attacks on Israel using cruise missiles, and the attack was carried out with multiple Arqub-type cruise missiles and targeted the Israeli city of Tel Aviv for the first time. Israel has not publicly commented on the attacks claimed by Iraqi armed groups.
On the other hand, Syria's defense ministry said that 8 soldiers had been injured in Israeli airstrikes near Damascus. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights War Monitor said that Israel struck a government building in the Damascus countryside that has been used by Lebanon's Iran-backed Hezbollah group since 2014.
Turkey said it is suspending all trade with Israel, and that is until it allows aid to enter Gaza unhindered during its offensive against Hamas militants in the territory. This comes as a shipment from Jordan was attacked by Israel and subsequently diverted by Hamas. The US has called on both Israel and Hamas to ensure that aid bound for civilians in Gaza is not disrupted.
The convoys from the Jordan military that brought the aid in unloaded the aid inside Gaza. It was then picked up by a humanitarian implementer for distribution inside Gaza, and that aid was intercepted and diverted by Hamas on the ground in Gaza. These attacks on aid shipments are unacceptable, and that Israel ought to take steps to prevent them, and it ought to take steps to hold people accountable for them. And I will tell you, we were glad to hear that Israel yesterday arrested 3 of the people involved in the attacks on this convoy.
The US campuses witnessed fresh bouts of clashes on Thursday when police forcibly removed scores of defiant pro-Palestinian protesters at several colleges.
They also cleared out the encampments where violent clashes took place a day prior. This while US President Joe Biden condemned the violence, emphasizing that only peaceful protests are protected under law.
Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not peaceful protest. It's against the law.
Hundreds of helmeted police swarmed the site of a pro-Palestinian protest at the University of California at Los Angeles early on Thursday. They fired flashbangs, arrested defiant demonstrators, and dismantled their encampment. The pre-dawn police crackdown at UCLA marked the latest flashpoint in mounting tensions on U.S. college campuses, where protests over Israel's war in Gaza have led to student clashes with each other and with law enforcement. Prior to moving in, police urged demonstrators in repeated loudspeaker announcements to clear the protest zone, which occupied a central plaza about the size of a football field. They eventually took down tents, tore apart barricades, and removed the encampment, while arrested protesters sat with their hands restrained behind their backs with zip ties. Local television station KABC-TV estimated 300 to 500 protesters had been hunkered down inside the camp, while around 2,000 more had gathered outside the barricades in support. Police said no one was hurt in this latest incident. That was little consolation to Taylor Gee, a 30-year-old pro-Palestinian protester and UCLA law student, who said he felt police should have done more the night before to aid demonstrators when they were attacked by supporters of Israel.
For them to come out the next night to remove us from the encampment after they felt absolutely no obligation or duty to protect the first night, it doesn't make any sense, but it also makes all the sense in the world. I'm not surprised.
The police action at UCLA came after police in New York City on Tuesday arrested pro-Palestinian activists who occupied a building at Columbia University and removed a tent city from the campus. Under mounting political pressure, President Joe Biden broke his silence on the campus protests in remarks at the White House Thursday.
There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. I understand people have strong feelings and deep convictions. In America, we respect the right and protect the right for them to express that. But it doesn't mean anything goes. It needs to be done without violence, without destruction, without hate, and within the law.
UCLA said its campus would remain closed except for limited operations Thursday and Friday.
Now for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report on the comments that were made by New York Mayor Eric Adams in relation to the recent arrest made at the Columbia University protests. Listen to this.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced that nearly half of the pro-Palestinian protesters arrested at Columbia University and City College of New York were not students with no affiliation to either schools. Adams blamed outside agitators and professionals with a history of fueling non-peaceful protests for the ongoing chaos and vowed to bring order and prevent the influence of these outside groups on students. One of the non-students arrested was identified as a 40-year-old with a history of anarchist and extremist activity who was being investigated by the NYPD for possible hate crimes. The protests have raised concern about anti-Semitism on school campuses here in New York and elsewhere, with many schools still grappling with these protests.
Susan further elaborates on President Biden's response to the campus agitations. Listen to this.
President Joe Biden said on Thursday that his support for Israel remains unwavering amid the ongoing protests against the country's war in Israel, which has been taking place at campuses across the country. After President Biden delivered a speech, a reporter asked him whether or not these recent protests has caused him to reconsider America's policies towards the region. The president's answer was no. Meanwhile, at Rutgers University in New Jersey, a group of protesters were faced with arrest. And what they did was, by the 4 p.m. deadline, they left their encampment. They did say that they also left because the university had said that they will consider some of these protesters' demands, although not to divest from Israel, but other demands like giving scholarships to some Palestinian students.
The hearing in Donald Trump's hush money case entered day 10 on Thursday in Manhattan Criminal Courthouse.
Now, Trump stands accused of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records during the 2016 presidential run. And these include a hush money payment that the former U.S. president made to adult star Stormy Daniels to silence her.
Trump is charged with hiding a $130,000 payment to Daniels while he continues to deny wrongdoings. The case is clipping along. Now, on Thursday, the jurors heard recorded conversations between Trump's then lawyer Michael Cohen and Keith Davidson, the attorney for both Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. In the audio tapes, Cohen is heard telling Davidson that Donald Trump was unhappy over the hush money payment. And this was the first time that Michael Cohen, who is expected to be a crucial witness in the case, was heard in the courtroom.
Now, before the tapes were tabled, Trump's legal team cross-examined Keith Davidson. They attacked Davidson's credibility and accused him of quote-unquote extorting money out of celebrities. Emilbo, one of Trump's lawyers, also tried to shift the blame of payments on Trump's ex-attorney Michael D. Cohen, who allegedly facilitated the process.
And the wrangle did not end here, of course. Jurors also heard arguments on 4 of his statements over possible gag order violations. While the prosecutors called Trump's actions corrosive, they fell short of demanding jail as a punishment. They have instead asked for Trump to be fined an additional $4,000 over the issue. Earlier, the judge had fined Trump with $9,000 for violating gag orders. Trump's lawyers defended the statement, saying that the former president should be allowed to respond to quote-unquote political attacks.
A senior forensic analyst, Douglas Dowse, was also called in to authenticate the phone recordings. It included the tape in which Trump and Cohen discussed the hush money deal for the former Playboy model Karen McDougal. Now, Russian military personnel are operating from an air base in West Africa's Niger, while the base is still hosting U.S. troops.
Well, the development has put U.S. and Russian troops in close proximity at a time when the nation's military and diplomatic rivalry has heightened over the conflict in Ukraine. However, speaking to Reuters, a senior U.S. defense official said that Russian forces are not mingling with U.S. troops.
The U.S. military personnel are using a separate hangar at Airbase 101, which is next to Diori Amani International Airport in Niamey, Niger's capital. The move follows Niger junta's decision to expel U.S. forces from the country.
In the month of March, Niger's military government asked the U.S. to withdraw all its forces from the country. Nearly 1,000 U.S. military personnel have been stationed in Niger to fight insurgents who killed thousands of people and displaced millions more in the West African country. In this fight, Washington was Niger's key partner until military junta seized power in July 2023. The latest development, however, has raised questions about the fate of U.S. installations in the country. The U.S. and its allies have been forced to move their troops out of a number of African countries following military coups. Recently, U.S. troops left Chad, while French forces left Mali and Burkina Faso. Ghana showcased a trove of treasures looted during British rule this week in the city of Kumasi.
Now, people travelled from across the country to witness the return plunder, which was on display for the first time since their return. Displayed pieces included gold neck discs, a sword, a royal chair and a dozen of other treasures in Kumasi. The seat of Asante King, known as Asantehene, the monarch said the items displayed are virtually the soul of the people of Asante. Ghana was under colonial rule from 1821 to 1957.
Now, much of these 42 items on display were taken during 5 violent battles between British forces and Asante Kingdom, known as Anglo-Asante Wars. Most of these were taken from Asante Palace, and have been returned after 50 years of negotiations.
It's a very important milestone in preserving the history of Asante, because most of the things are are not written. They are documented in artwork. It's expressed in the art that we see. Everything that we see is a piece of history. And so bringing it back is bringing back the history to the people to whom it belongs. We own the narrative and we should tell our story.
Now, British and Victoria Albert Museums and the Fowler Museum at the University of California sent these artifacts back earlier this year. However, 32 objects from London Museum are on loan, and that move is part of steps that are being taken by Western institutions to re-examine their colonial legacies. Other museums in the United States and Europe have also agreed to hand back treasures taken from the Kingdom of Benin in modern-day Nigeria. Now, South Korea's lawmakers voted on a bill to allow fresh investigation into the deadly Halloween incident of 2022.
And 160 people were crushed to death in that incident after an unprecedented surge at crowds in Seoul. The bill, which was vetoed by President Yoon Suk-yeol in January, has now been passed by leaders from both parties. The next report gets you the complete story.
South Korea voted on Thursday to launch a fresh probe into Seoul's deadly 2022 Halloween crowd crush. The incident in the capital's Itaewon district killed nearly 160 people. The country's National Assembly voted to approve the bill, backed by both the ruling and opposition parties, to further investigate the tragedy. It comes amid growing pressure on authorities, including from relatives of the victims, to hold those responsible for the fatal crush to account. Jung Mi-ra, the mother of one of the mostly young people who were killed, spoke outside the parliament.
Yoon Suk-yeol's government will sincerely respond to requests for data submission and attendance for fact-finding, and should not try to hide or reduce anything. Through this, the fundamental cause and responsibility of the disaster on October 29, 2022 should be identified, and the honor of 159 victims should be restored, and measures to prevent reoccurrence should be taken.
An earlier bill, backed by the opposition-led parliament, but not the ruling People Power Party, was vetoed by President Yoon Suk-yeol in January. This latest bill is a compromise. It doesn't grant full investigative power to the panel, which Yoon's office said he objected to. But under the legislation, a committee recommended by two major parties and a chair chosen by them will look into the tragedy. The United Nations Human Rights Committee, as well as the victims' families, have repeatedly called for an independent inquiry. A police investigation published early last year concluded that unpreparedness and an inadequate response were the main factors behind the deadly crush. In January, South Korean prosecutors indicted the former head of the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency. He was charged with contributing to the crush through negligence. No senior government figures have resigned or been sacked so far.
Located in the heart of Budapest, a quirky bar has made its reputation with its unique way of engaging with patrons.
Now, the club lets its customers express themselves on countless handwritten notes that adorn its walls and ceilings.
Since inception in the mid-1990s, this establishment has captivated foreign tourists, not only for its proximity to the picturesque Danube River, but also with its unique allure. Upon stepping inside, guests are wrapped by the warm ambience of its dimly lit interior. The floor-to-ceiling wood paneling makes it particularly cozy, and most enchanting for the patrons is the manner in which they get to immortalize their visit by leaving messages on small slips of paper that are affixed to the walls.
There's also an unlimited helping of hazelnuts for the customers here.
All the guests come here with their mobile phones using their cameras. Some people come in just to film the interior. They don't even want to sit, only to make a video or to leave a note without eating anything.
The menu has a selection of traditional Hungarian dishes. It caters to an eclectic mix of tourists seeking an authentic taste of local cuisine. The videos and pictures captured within its walls serve as spontaneous endorsement, cementing the pub's reputation through an organic spread of word-of-mouth acclaim.
I've never seen a place like this anywhere, not like in Italy or where I came from, so it's really unique.
Now, in the latest push for women empowerment, Saudi Arabia's Interior Ministry has released a video which shows women recruits attending a training course.
Well, the conscripts are being trained to combat drugs and handle weapons as well. Take a look at this one.
All right, with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. On the other side of the break, elections to the lower house of the Indian Parliament are underway. And this is the first time elections will take place, or rather they are taking place in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir since the abrogation of Article 370 back in 2019. We'll get you an exclusive report from the Valley.
Also on the other side, Nepal is enduring a season of wildfires. Thousands of wildfires have been reported this year in the country. The latest broke out on Thursday near the capital, Kathmandu. We'll get you the story on the other side. Stay tuned.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
Over 200 people die following flash floods that rocked Kenya and Tanzania concurrently, with authorities announcing forceful evacuations of vulnerable residents. There is a new war front in Sudan. Brutal attacks by the Arab-dominated Rapid Support Forces on ethnic African civilians in Darfur has claimed thousands of lives. The United Nations sounds the alarm. And a former Kenyan rugby player turns into a roaming chef as he acquires TikTok fame. Dennis Ombachi will be featured on World of Africa at these times on WION World is One.
Israel opens Erez crossing to Gaza aid for the first time. WION reports from ground zero at the Israel-Gaza border.
So I'm at the Erez crossing. This is in southern Israel, right on the border with Gaza.
The land crossing on the northern part of Gaza.
And then behind me, you can see the aid trucks.
As Gaza troops talks continue, unrest grows in the US campuses.
How many of these protesters are students and how many are from the outside, just supporters? You can see that there is a very heavy police presence. They have zip ties in hand. This is Susan Tehani reporting from New York for WION.
WION reports all the action as it happens.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Here's what we've lined up for you on this side of the show.
Turkey suspends all trade with Israel until it allows aid to enter Gaza unhindered during its offensive against Hamas in the territory.
Top Israeli ministers huddle to discuss the possibility of the Rafah offensive as stalemate continues over the Gaza truce deal.
Russian military personnel enter an airbase in Niger that is hosting US troops, a move that follows a decision by Niger's junta to expel US forces from the country.
Scandal, hush money payments, secret recordings and Donald Trump's alleged gag order violations take center stage during his 10th day in court. Trump lawyer suggests hush money payment was extortion.
Former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan alleges threat to his life. In a column in British Daily, Imran Khan slams Army Chief Asim Munir, says Munir has tried every tactic to decimate his party's presence from the political environment.
The suspense over Congress leader Rahul Gandhi ends. Party announces his candidature from Raebareli in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. Congress fields Rahul Gandhi from Raebareli.
Labour celebrates early gains in UK local polls, says results put party on course to win general elections. The first results are coming in for the 2024 local and mayoral elections, which are a major test for Rishi Sunak.
Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson turned away from his local polling station when trying to cast his vote in Thursday's election after forgetting to bring the required photo ID.
Death toll from heavy rains in Brazil rises to 29 while 60 people are missing. Southernmost state of Rio Grande declares a state of public calamity.
Now, elections to the lower house of the parliament or Lok Sabha are underway in India. This is the first time elections will take place in the Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir since the abrogation of Article 370.
And of course, that took place back in 2019. It's 2024 and J&K's former Chief Minister Omar Abdullah filed his nomination papers for North Kashmir's Baramulla constituency. Here's a detailed report by WION's correspondent Idris Lone.
Accompanied by supporters from his Srinagar residence to Baramulla in North Kashmir, former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah submitted his papers on Thursday, taking a dig at India's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party and the Election Commission. Omar said, looking at the number of people accompanying him, they might delay the elections in Baramulla too. The Election Commission has postponed the Anantnag election from May 7 to May 25th.
We left Srinagar in a couple of vehicles but reached here in a huge rally. And seeing such a huge enthusiasm, I won't be surprised if they postpone the elections in Baramulla like Anantnag. But whenever the elections are held, we will be victorious. Voters have to decide on the 20th of May whether they want to send their candidate to Delhi or get Delhi's proxy to Baramulla.
The Baramulla contest is between Omar Abdullah and Sajjad Lone. While Omar Abdullah is a part of the India Alliance, Lone of the Jammu and Kashmir People's Conference is looking for support from parties like APNI Party and Bharatiya Janata Party. Sajjad Lone filed his nomination papers last week. In the 2019 elections, National Conference's Muhammad Akbar Lone won the parliamentary elections from the Baramulla seat. Raja Aijaz Ali from the Jammu and Kashmir People's Conference, headed by Sajjad Lone, came in second.
The people of Kashmir deserve that they be represented by a new voice, by a different voice. And even the people of India deserve that they know exactly what is happening here.
Baramulla has over 1.7 million voters. Around 10 candidates have filed nominations, and a few more are expected in the next 24 hours.
In North Kashmir's Baramulla constituency, it's a direct fight between the former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah, and People's Conference Chief Sajjad Lone. In 2019 parliamentary elections, National Conference candidate won by 30,000 votes from the People's Conference candidate. And this time around, with their coalition partners, it seems that there's going to be a tough fight. With video journalist Feroz, Idris Lone for WION World is One.
Parts of Asia are witnessing extreme heat with the onset of summer. The South Asian nation of Nepal is enduring a season of wildfire as well.
Thousands of wildfires have been reported this year in the country. The latest broke out on Thursday near the capital, Kathmandu. Firefighters, local residents battled a massive wildfire on the outskirts of Kathmandu. Emergency crew worked through the night to fight the blaze, which engulfed a forested area. More than 4,500 wildfires have been reported this year across the country, nearly double compared to last year according to government data. But it is less than the worst fire season on record, that was in 2021.
As per Nepal's Environment Minister, the increase in the number of wildfires this year due to a lengthy drought and heatwave condition in Nepal's southern plains, while climate experts have highlighted a link between climate change and more intense heat waves. Several parts of South and Southeast Asia have sweltered through a heatwave since last month. In Nepal, temperatures have risen above 40 degrees Celsius in southern areas. More hot weather is expected in the days ahead. Many schools have also been forced to shut in the region due to extreme heat.
Nepal is witnessing an unprecedented wildfire cases affecting over 70 districts of the country. Currently, the country is recording over 4,000 active forest fire cases. As per Nepali authorities, 75% of the forest fire cases takes place in the month of March and April every year. Yet, Nepal does not have any dedicated section or unit for forest fire cases. it lacks institutional mechanisms and policies or any forest fire tools and equipments. Saloni Murarka for WION World is One in Kathmandu, Nepal.
All right, let's now take a look at all the developments that are coming in from the world of technology. India, it's issued a warning to its government officials. As per the government order, Side Copy, a cyber threat group that has ties with Pakistan, is exploiting a flaw in WinRAR software. They're utilizing the flaw to deliver Trojan and malware into Indian government networks. Understand that this is used to compress data and to access zip files. And according to reports, the recent advisory was issued by the Indian government on the 9th of April. India has asked its government officials to firstly update their work systems WinRAR, secondly identify infected systems and isolate the ones that are infected, and lastly conduct cyber security audits of government institutions.
Universal Music Group and TikTok have reached a new licensing agreement. As per the new agreement, TikTok will restore the label's songs on its platform. It will also provide Universal Group artists protection from AI technology. Understand that TikTok began removing Universal's content from its app after their licensing deal expired this year in January. At the time, the two sides failed to reach an agreement on royalties, AI and online safety for TikTok users. Now, the deal comes amid questions over TikTok's future in the US. The Biden administration has given ByteDance, TikTok's Chinese owner, 270 days to sell its US assets. If TikTok fails to do this, the social media platform will get banned in the US.
A convicted sex offender has asked the Norwegian Supreme Court to declare social media access as a human right. The unidentified offender had molested a minor and used Snapchat messaging app to connect with the young boys. Last year, the court sentenced the unidentified offender to 13 months in prison and banned him from using Snapchat for 2 years.
The offender's lawyers argue that depriving him of his account is unlawful under the European Convention on Human Rights. This is not the first time the offender's lawyers have raised this issue. Last year in November, the Norwegian appeal court dismissed the appeal, saying that the defendant had used Snapchat to exploit children sexually. The Norwegian Supreme Court will issue its ruling in the coming weeks.
Moving on now, are aliens trying to communicate with us? If they are, how would they talk to us?
Well, they could be sending messages, and that would be captured by big radio antennas, if at all that happens. But recently something amazing has happened. It's something different. Watch this next story to know how NASA received a laser-coded message from deep space.
Are human beings alone in the universe? Are there extraterrestrial beings? And if they are trying to communicate to us, will they send a message through the immense depth of the interstellar space? Questions that have survived unanswered down the ages. Now, from 226 million kilometers away, NASA has just received a laser message. But don't you get carried away yet. It is not aliens. There's a simpler explanation. NASA's Psyche spacecraft transmitted the laser from its current location, 226 million kilometers away, in the asteroid belt between the planets Mars and Jupiter. In October 2023, NASA sent the space mission towards an asteroid, Psyche 16. The asteroid is primarily composed of metal, a rarity in our solar system. Going back to the deep space message, it is a remarkable feat of the communication technology. Aboard the Psyche spacecraft, shattering records, it has proved its capability in transmitting messages from deep space using lasers. While the spacecraft's primary communication system relies on radio frequency, the optical communications demo has showcased its potential as a game changer in deep space communication. This technology could enable future deep space missions to carry more sophisticated instruments and send back substantially more data to Earth than currently possible. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Bilateral trade between Israel and Turkey has come under crossfire of the Gaza conflict.
Now, sources say that Turkey has suspended all trade with Israel as President Recep Tayyip Erdogan steps up criticism of the Jewish state. While Ankara has not formally suspended trade ties, there is no clarity when it could be restored in the future. The latest action follows last month's restrictions on certain Turkish exports to Israel.
The Benjamin Netanyahu government has reacted sharply to the latest development. Foreign Minister Israel Katz said the government will create immediate alternatives, increase local manufacturing and find other suppliers.
Now, bilateral trade was worth $6.8 billion in 2023. At least two-thirds of it was Turkish exports. Turkey's biggest export to Israel was iron and steel. Its biggest import was refined oil products.
Turkey's tensions with Israel come at a time when Ankara faces an economic downturn. A Bloomberg survey shows that annual inflation may have reached 70% in April. A hike in the minimum wages could be the reason behind the spurt, despite a tighter monetary policy. Another poll shows the monthly price growth reaching 3.4% in April. High inflation and geopolitical tensions have forced the central bank to delay cutting the interest rate, which stands at 50%. Whether the suspension of trade with Israel will impact Turkey's economy is yet to be seen.
All right, and now we also take a look at potential shift in India's stance on Chinese investment in the electronics sector.
After lobbying by domestic companies, the government might be considering allowing some Chinese investment back into the fold. Take a look at this next report for more.
India's stance on Chinese electronics investment might be softening. The government is considering allowing Chinese companies back into the sector on a case-by-case basis. This shift comes after lobbying by Indian firms struggling to meet production targets without Chinese partnerships. The government is prioritizing high-tech areas like semiconductors and display panels, but only if these collaborations lead to significant value addition in domestic manufacturing. Previously, in 2020, stricter rules limited Chinese investment in India due to border tensions. This policy change, known as Press Note 3, restricted companies with ties to bordering nations from investing without government approval. The stalled Voltas Shanghai highly air conditioner project exemplifies the challenges faced by companies under these regulations. The potential easing of restrictions is cautiously optimistic. The final decision is likely to be made by the new government taking office in June 2024. Additionally, the mobile industry is requesting relaxed visa norms for Chinese technical professionals to support potential joint ventures. The story captures India's balancing act, attracting foreign investment in high-tech sectors while safeguarding domestic interests. The report, WION World is One.